Go ahead and get over to this Pierce Morgan debate. And I know, guys, I know for my members, I know. But go ahead and bear with me with this one, because this was actually a pretty good debate.
So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get.
He doesn't care about Russia or Ukraine. So this is a robbery now. Tesla has lithium go in its batteries. Elon wants that lithium.
I do think it's kind of gangster to try to like strong arm Ukraine into giving us what really isn't rightfully ours.
NATO has generally been kind of a force for good, yeah.
And make sure you like the video, guys. Go ahead and double tap that screen or hit the 3 dots up there in the corner. Let's keep the show going.
No, I find it to be very immature thinking to say NATO's either good or bad. Pierce, you and Tucker had your argument about this, but if you want to say NATO's a defensive alliance, I mean, I guess, except for all of the times when it's not.
There's no going back from a...
And shout out my man Fire Ant, man, helping keeping us going. And also, like I said, the likes and the super chats keep the chat going, man. Let me know that you're feeling the content. And make sure to subscribe to the channel, guys. We do this every single night. Other than that, double tap that screen.
Parade celebrating the mutilated, strangled bodies of babies.
What Hamas did is so stupid, but are we ever going to talk about the 15,000 dead children that Israel slaughtered?
There will never be peace in this region as long as the Palestinian people do not believe Israel has a right to exist.
When is it going to get through your thick heads that Palestine doesn't exist because of the murderous terrorist state of Israel?
On the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, President Trump is clear about what he wants, an end to the war. The US president has doubled down on his false claim that President Zelensky is a dictator and that Ukraine started the conflict. Zelensky says he'll give up the presidency for peace and offered to do so immediately in exchange for membership of NATO.
If it's about peace in Ukraine and you really want me to leave my position, I'm ready to do that. Secondly, I can exchange it for NATO membership if there is such an opportunity. I'll do it immediately without a long conversation about it. I am focused on Ukraine's security today and not in 20 years. I don't plan to be in power for decades.
Spoken like a true dictator, I'm sure we can all agree. Well, the US and Ukraine are also sparring over whether tens of billions in US aid, much of it spent in the US on US weapons, will have to be paid back. Trump's coarse words have muddied the waters, but the negotiating stance is becoming clearer. The United States wants a share of Ukraine's vast mineral wealth, and it also wants Europe, not Washington, D.C., to guarantee its security and future. And the president's personal attacks on Zelensky may be the uncomfortable cost of bringing Putin to the table. If he's not there, the war can't end. Trump said in a statement on Monday that the minerals deal is an economic partnership to ensure the American people recoup tens of billions of dollars. He also said that he's now in serious discussions with Putin about ending the war and the talks are proceeding very well. Well, so far, so good. But dealing with devils carries risks, laid bare in the latest chilling scenes from Gaza. Hamas turned the release of 4 dead hostages, 2 of them children, into a sick parade. One coffin contained the wrong remains. Others were stuffed with Hamas propaganda. 3 empty commuter buses in Tel Aviv then exploded in a botched terror attack. You can believe in the art of the deal, but not the people that the United States is dealing with. Well, the founder and CEO of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, host of the Part of the Problem podcast, Dave Smith, free press writer and author of Second Class, how the elite...
Now, we all knew how Hamas felt about, Israel, the Israeli people. Like, we all know. So I ain't gonna lie, they need to show us this one. The only reason why I say they need to show us because, well, we kind of already knew how these people felt about, Israel.
He's betrayed America's working men and women, Batia Ungar Sargon, and the host of Social Contract and former Republican presidential candidate Joe Walsh all join me. I'm also joined by the retired U.S. Army Brigadier and a former Assistant Secretary of State under George W. Bush, General Mark Kimmett. Well, welcome to all of you. I want to start by playing a clip from an interview I did with the former British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. There is this weird disconnect by many in America, particularly on the conservative right, who do not share our view, who seem to think that Zelensky is the real villain here, and that Putin was provoked into doing this to safeguard his own security because of NATO encroachment and so on.
No,
what do you say to that specific argument?
It's totally mad. It's totally mad.
Okay, why?
It's through the looking glass. It's the complete opposite. And by the way, to say that I had some role in persuading the Ukrainians to fight for their country is a great, it's obviously totally implausible, but it's also a great big fat steaming lie.
Well, let me start with General Kimmett on this. Just
hold on. He didn't really disprove it in any way, shape, or form. He just said, no, it's a straight lie. And I'm just like, well, y'all did encroach on him. That's not a lie. He did told y'all not to do it. That's not a lie. I'm trying to figure out, like, all right, what's going on? Y'all not trying to accept responsibility for this? Y'all trying to scapegoat? Like, what's the deal here?
It's through the looking glass. It's the complete opposite.
Okay.
And by the way, to say that I had,
if it was the complete opposite, then why is Putin stopped? Like I said, if it was a lie, then Putin would, I ain't gonna lie, he'd be pressing on Poland and other countries closest to, well, Ukraine.
Some role in persuading the Ukrainians to fight for their country is a great, it's obviously totally implausible, but it's also a great big fat steaming lie.
Well, let me start with General Kimmett on this, just from a pure military perspective, General. And thank you for
please
joining me tonight. Who started this war?
Well, first of all, I think it's pretty clear that the Russians invaded in 2022. There's some questions, I'd say, historically about what happened in 2014. But if you're talking about what happened 3 years ago, it was clearly the Russians. There was no warning about it. There was no provocation on the part of Zelensky. There was certainly no movement of Ukrainian forces to threaten the Russians in the east. So this one goes to, this one definitely goes to Putin.
Bro, what? So like I said, we're just going to ignore the fact that Putin did not want Ukraine to go to NATO. He said that explicitly. I do not want Ukraine to go to NATO. Ukraine wants to go to NATO. Putin said no, or else I'm going to take it. That was the whole thing. So to sit here and pretend like he just did this for no reason is asinine.
And in terms of where we are in this potential peace settlement, it seems to be more and more that the jungle drums are beating. I got this feeling from Boris Johnson. I got it actually from interviewing President Zelensky 10 days ago or so. That there's a kind of general acceptance of various things, even if they're not being stated explicitly. But one is that Ukraine will not, as part of the settlement, get full membership of NATO. That seems to be completely off the table. Secondly, there's likely to be a freezing of the territorial lines where they are right now. In other words, where they barely moved in the last virtually a year, actually. That kind of eastern slide, the 20% that Putin's taken, where things have been pretty well at a stalemate, that will remain under Russian occupation, but probably not without any sovereignty transfer to Russia. And that America will recoup some of the money it's put up to help protect Ukraine and to continue supplying protection, perhaps as part of a united force, including Europeans going forward, by taking a chunk of Ukraine's mineral revenue going.
All right, cool. Let's address the elephant in the room, right? Let's say that I'm wrong, or let's say that I'm spouting Russia propaganda, and we should go, and pretty much Russia is the villain. What are y'all going to do about it? What are you as Americans willing to do about it? Do you think that we should put boots on the ground and go off into a World War III? I mean, what is Europe willing to do about it? All they did was throw money. They wasn't even willing to put a soldier in there. So we can sit here and say, like, Russia bad all day, but honestly, thank God it's not the situation they're talking about. Because if it was, I don't even think we'd be talking. We'd be fighting right now because Russia would be still moving its borders. Russia wouldn't even want to talk to Trump. They send him to the side and just be like, look, dog, is it you going to fight us or you just going to sit aside and watch us do what we do? And that would have been the end of the discussion if what the general's saying is correct.
Going forward and minerals.
No, really, think about that logically. What would be the point of even negotiating with Trump if the whole goal is, fuck it, I'm just going to expand my borders, and just take all of Europe?
Cells.
Oh, shoot, my bad. I'm sorry, my big dog James, bro. Hey, man, my big dog Foley. What's good, Foley? He says, who else excited for Epstein files release tomorrow? I mean, bro, who is not excited? And if you're not excited, it's because you're on it.
That seems to be where we're heading here. Is that your reading of this, and how workable would that be?
Well, if you're asking me, first of all, the battle lines have been at a stalemate for almost 2 years now. I wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal in July of 2022, predicting that we are going to see this World War I Flanders field trench warfare. So nothing has happened on the ground of any consequence. But I think you've outlined what the basic framework of the American position is. And I think it's important to understand that the view from the conservative right is that if we're going to support a country in Eastern Europe like Ukraine, there should be a return on that investment.
Yo, he said, James, he said, if I see my name on the list, it was Dave, not me. Damn, he's already passing it off on Dave. That's tough. That's tough. And shout out my man, James. Appreciate the support, bro. And if you have any questions, comments, jokes like James, go ahead and send in $2 and up. We'll go ahead and read it out loud and post it to the top of the chat, just like my man Foley.
Investment that the American taxpayer should.
Oh, and double tap the screen and like the video, please.
Have a total cost to them. If there's a return on that investment, mineral wealth, I think that's where the businessman Donald Trump comes in. I think he described it right. It will probably end up as a frozen conflict. The Europeans right now are talking about not only a frozen conflict, but a situation where it could well be the peacekeepers are put into the Donbass.
And shout out to my man Fire. He's like, bro, what the fuck, James? Oh, God. It's like, bro. He's like, if I'm on that list, man, look, it was Big Wave Dave. You just use my name. I'm like, damn. I'm like, throw my man under the bus.
So that both sides withdraw outside. So it looks much like, say, Kashmir or the area between North Korea and South Korea. But that has to be negotiated. I think we're a long way from a settlement before we actually see what the architecture of the deal looks like.
Yeah, let me bring in some of the rest of the panel. So, Joe Walsh, I mean, I hoped and prayed that Ukraine could repel Russia, but my army brother, who I've cited a lot, but he was a colonel in the British Army, fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and knows more about these things than I do. He said from the very start, there is not a chance that Ukraine is going to beat Russia. They just do not have enough firepower to do this. And he said that steadfastly through it to the point where I understood.
I'm like, bro, Russia would give us a run for our money. Give us a run for our money. But just by saying that, you sure knew that they didn't have a chance. And then it's crazy how everybody was talking down on Russia's army and on Russia as if they're not a superpower. I mean, look, bro, I'm America #1 all day. But I gotta sit here and pay respect still to at least one of our, I guess, one of the closest countries to us. We at least gotta pay respect, like, and be like, yeah, y'all adversaries for a reason. Because, well, if anybody, y'all closest in military power, and we're talking about Russia and China, y'all closest in economy, Russia and China, like closer in numbers, Russia and China. I mean, shoot, if you want to talk about China, man, they beat us in terms of population.
He's right. And I don't think anybody thinks that Ukraine can now win this war, which brings me to Donald Trump and his blunt instrument way of dealing with these things. We saw it in Gaza. We're seeing it again with Ukraine. I don't like the way he talks about President Zelensky. I don't know why he has to demonize him in all this. I think calling him a dictator when you're not calling Putin a dictator is ludicrous. I think saying Ukraine started this is also ludicrous. However, if the bigger picture for Trump is taking a battering ram to an intransigent military scenario, just painted so well by General Kimmich, where it's just going nowhere. And excuse me, I spoke to Trump on the phone a few weeks ago, and he told me about the reports he was getting about the killing on the ground, and he said it was exactly like World War One, just big open fields and both sides gunning each other down, thousands of casualties a day. And he said this cannot go on. So I think he genuinely wants to end this senseless slaughter. And I've not seen a better idea, frankly, to getting this sorted than the kind of scenario that Trump has laid out, which is we get minerals and we supply some security, and the Europeans have to step up too and supply security. And that's how we move forward. Do you see a better way of resolving this? Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. Our sponsors mean we can bring it to you for free. Support for today's show comes from Beam, who can help you out with hot cocoa for sleep. It's just to lie down after an uncensored debate. You can try Beam.
The war. That
on with the show.
I don't know, Pierce, but even if you buy that benign view of Trump, that he just wants to end the war, I still don't know how you explain what he's done and said in the past month. If you wanted to end the war, then why are you only beating up on and bad-mouthing and lying about the country that was invaded? Lying, Pierce, that Ukraine started this war. I'm coming.
They did. Because they knew that Russia was willing to get aggressive over them joining NATO. They knew this and they did it anyway. Yeah, that's their fault.
To you today, Pierce, the UN just passed a resolution earlier today on the 3-year anniversary calling on Russia to simply withdraw from sovereign Ukraine. The United States of America voted against that UN resolution. Think about that. The United States joined Russia and North Korea in voting against a simple resolution that says, Russia, get out of sovereign Ukraine. Every freedom democratic country in the world voted for that resolution.
Want to know why? Because everybody sat there and was like, dog, let's, at the end of the day, all y'all could vote, but who's going to make them? All y'all can vote, but like at the end of the day, man, violence is the overall rule in the jungle, or violence is the overall keeper. It's like the only reason why we got these rules and regulations, these laws and all that is because somebody's willing to get violent about it. I don't think y'all want to get violent about it. And let me give y'all an example. It's like when we tried to make Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal. Cool. The law can say it all day, but guess what? What y'all gonna do about it?
So you know why? You know why America has voted against it? It's because they know it's not going to happen, and they are trying. You know, Trump is trying, and I believe this. I think he is a guy who prefers peace to war. I think he proved that in his first term. So, regardless of the rhetoric, which I think is very unfortunate, I do think that the idea that America right now in this process is going to suddenly vote with the UN, which they feel is pretty discredited anyway, that they're going to vote with a UN resolution to kick Russia out, knowing it's not going to happen. How does that advance the cause of peace? It won't.
It's a resolution, Pierce, honoring the 3rd-year anniversary of Putin's invasion. For the United States to simply say on the 3rd-year anniversary that it was wrong for Putin to invade and he ought to withdraw, that seems like a fairly easy thing for the United States of America to do. But Trump can't do that because he will not distance himself from Putin.
Well, hang on, Biden wouldn't have done it either.
I mean, let's be real.
I think he would have.
Really?
No,
I think he would have.
I mean, what you mean? He had like this whole time to do so. He had 2 years to do so, and he didn't do a damn thing. So no, you cannot sit there and say, "Oh, I think he would have came to that resolution." I mean, no, Biden would have let it get to the point where Ukraine would have been completely Russian. That's how bad it would have got.
I don't think so. But let me bring in Batia. I mean, Batia, look, we're at a very febrile moment in this whole war, but we could also be at the beginning of the end of the war. And if that is what is going on here, and there's a recognition on all sides, it's got to come to an end. And we're now just trying to work out how that happens. What is your feeling about the kind of settlement it looks like is on the table?
So, Pierce, I so appreciate you being willing to admit this about Donald Trump, because you have been such a stalwart defender of the Ukraine. And yet you are 100% correct. Donald Trump hates war. He thinks it's totally wasteful. He thinks it's bad for business, and he wants this to end. You know, from the point of view of the American people, there has never been widespread support for this. The American people have never understood why this is our job to fund this. And I think Donald—
Let me be real with you. The most tragic thing about war is that number one thing, people is power. Like the more people you got under you, the more power you got. And it's such a wasteful use of people just to send them out there to die, when they could be, you know, making families, producing businesses, bringing up the country's GDP and all that great stuff. So, yeah, it is a pretty damn waste. It is a terrible thing just to see human life get thrown away from something that's not even all that productive at the end of the day.
Donald Trump expected when he came into office to find Zelensky the one eager to have this settled, and Putin the one sort of holding off and being recalcitrant. And when he found the opposite, and when he found Zelensky totally unwilling to do the most basic act of gratitude and give the United States a stake in these minerals, I think Trump got very angry about that. Now, I want to address something that I think I agree with people. It seems a little mysterious. I hear people saying this all the time. Why is he, demeaning Zelensky and building up Putin? I think the answer to that is because Donald Trump is a deal maker, and he does not view international relations the way that the liberal post-world order saw things. The Obama administration, the Biden administration, they have this view of diplomacy
bro, I know it's gonna hurt y'all feelings, but he gains more from being on Putin's side than Zelensky. I mean, what? Now that Putin also controls a good amount of Ukraine's resources, I mean, they're even a better partner to work with. Oh shit! And y'all may not like hearing this, but this is the fact of the matter. And it seems like Trump is just always going to go for the best deal and the best outcome for America, like it or not.
You need to sort of have two equals at the table, or as equal as possible. And so if your ally is the one who is stronger, you got to bring them down a little. If the person that you're not dealing with is weak, you lift them up a little. You get people to an even playing field, and then you can make a deal. And I think Donald Trump sees things in the exact opposite way. He sees them from a real estate point of view. You're never going to get a deal if both sides have equal power. What you actually want is a power disparity, because then the weaker party has more of an incentive to compromise. And the stronger party is going to compromise as well, because they get to remain the stronger party. And I think he is playing Putin like a fiddle. He knows that if he goes out there and builds up Zelensky and makes Putin feel the exact same fears about NATO not being that buffer zone, and Ukraine not being a buffer zone, Ukraine being part of NATO, Putin will never come to the table. But if he says to Putin, I respect where you're coming from, I don't care about the history, I just want this to end, then that is what's going to get Putin to the table. And I think he assumed that because Ukraine has gotten $200 billion out of the American taxpayer, that they would be willing to come to the table too. And I think he's very upset that Zelensky has not turned out to be that way.
Okay, Cenk, you were laughing, but I mean, that could be entirely accurate.
No, there's no chance that's accurate. Sorry about that. Okay, so look, at the beginning, this was a giant mystery. I didn't understand what was going on. I might have said this on your show, Piers. I was like, why would we be attacking our ally? Put aside the fact that they're our ally. It doesn't make any sense in negotiation. You want to put leverage on the opposing party, Russia, so that they are willing to get to a deal that we could live with and our ally can live with. Putting pressure on your own ally who's in the weaker position makes no logical sense in a negotiation ever. I mean, ever. It's the exact opposite.
So in this negotiation where Russia basically holds all the chips, what are we talking about? I'm really trying to think, we need to let them have a position, try to work things out from them. I'm going to be real with you. Like, the Ukrainians got themselves in this position. It's us who got to sit here and negotiate so they don't get completely taken over. So for him to sit here and think that, we can just work out a deal that's going to work the best for them. I mean, like, bro, if you think they're going to get back all their land or full control of that land, I mean, bro, nope, it's not happening. And, you stupid.
Of what you're supposed to do. So putting aside any feelings about Zelensky and Russia, this isn't about that. Just in sheer negotiation, it makes no sense. Okay, but now I've solved it, because it's clear now what's happening. Because they want the mineral rights. So he's putting pressure on Zelensky because he doesn't give a damn about what kind of deal Russia and Ukraine strike and how much land one keeps or the other. Do you know what's in the mineral? We keep calling it mineral rights. Titanium. And lithium. Who needs lithium? Oh, right. Tesla has lithium go in its batteries. Elon wants that lithium. So the deal that our Treasury Secretary pushed across the table to Zelensky when they were one-on-one and tried to bully him into signing was, we spent $100 or $200 billion in Ukraine. There's conflicting numbers, but look, we all want peace. We all want to stop spending that money. That's legitimate. The negotiations are perfectly legitimate. The drive for peace, perfectly legitimate. He pushes across a deal for $500 billion in mineral rights. And here's the most important thing that American voters have to understand. Those minerals do not go to us, the American taxpayers, the American citizens. They go to American corporations. We are going to get $0 out of that. But Elon Musk.
Hold on now. If they're going to the corporations, these same corporations who give us our jobs, who reinvest into this economy, I mean, then yeah, that's going to go to us. And think about it, these minerals, like Trump said, is supposed to be able to bring down our manufacturing costs. So bargaining for these minerals now, while also trying to get Apple over here, is a pretty damn good idea, if I may say so myself. It's like, what are you talking about? Remember, the whole premise of Trump when it came to bringing manufacturing back was, one, opening up the minerals that we have here and also making deals with other countries to get some of their minerals to bring down our costs. Trump seen an opportunity to get some cheap minerals and he jumped at it. And you honestly can't be mad. That's his perfect negotiation skills. And yes, opportunistic, but hey, man, my man got a mandate to fulfill.
Is going to get fabulously even richer. He wants that lithium and he doesn't care about Russia or Ukraine. So this is a robbery now. And that's why they're pressuring Zelensky instead of Putin.
Okay, Dave Smith, it's a robbery. Piers Morgan Uncensored is now proudly independent. If you like the bottom level, silver tributes, gold, and straight.
I know some of y'all is a bit hilarious. I mean, you call me a Russian propagandist. What are you, a Ukrainian propagandist? Like, bro, what's going on here? It's like, dog, like what do you got, family members in Ukraine or something? Like, you seem a little un-American, man. You seem like you want us to go to war with Ukraine and risk American lives for Ukraine. That's a little un-American, my friend. Who are you? And shout out my man Hellbat, man. Appreciate the support. He says, what's up, everyone? Plus more than just Tesla takes lithium. That's way too single-minded for even Chank Rip. Yeah, low-key. He's like, what's up, everyone? Plus more than just Tesla takes lithium. Yeah, more than just Tesla takes lithium. Yeah. More than just Tesla takes lithium. So the fact that he just used that as a dig at Elon Musk, I'm just like, bro, really? I mean, what about the battery companies? So when you bring up Elon Musk,
we do not care.
And I'm pretty sure there are bigger consumers of lithium than Elon Musk. And here's the craziest thing. Like, if you don't know too much, there are children in Africa who are enslaved so they can go out there and pick lithium. I mean, shoot, y'all might want to get into that and let's see who's running that operation. Let's see who benefits from it.
I don't completely agree with Trump's proposal. I do think it's kind of gangster to try to like strong arm Ukraine into giving us what really isn't rightfully ours. And it's kind of rightfully the people of Ukraine's. By the way, I say this not like as a commie at all. So when I'm saying rightful, I don't mean like the people own it or something. I mean like whoever homesteaded it or something about Lockean property rights. But, you know, there's been this major change in Donald Trump's rhetoric towards Zelensky. Through the campaign and through the very beginning of his administration, he would always just say he had a great relationship with him and he thinks he can get a deal done. Something there has changed for sure. But in terms of the stuff, look, if you're trying to negotiate a peace to this and you accept that we're not going to get the Biden Nancy Pelosi pipe dream, which was always a pipe dream. Your brother was correct about that, Piers, that we were going to, repel Vladimir Putin from Crimea. This was all just ridiculous. And hundreds of thousands of people died in the pursuit of this unachievable policy. And if we can all accept that we're going to get some type of settlement here, that we're going to have to negotiate an end to this war, and that Ukraine isn't going to be able to defeat the Russians militarily, then obviously it makes absolutely no sense to sign on to these virtue signaling UN resolutions. It makes absolutely no sense for him to be just out there.
All right, guys, I got to ask you a serious question for the trolls or the naysayers or the disagreeers, all right? Like, do y'all want to go to war with Russia? No, I mean, answer that question honestly. Do you want to go to war with Russia? Because understanding, get what you guys want, we'd honestly have to go up top of Russia. Or at least some European country would have to do so. So, are you guys okay with either Europe or America fighting Russia? I mean, because that's what y'all pretty much like going at here. Like, really think about what you're saying.
insulting Vladimir Putin, which seems to be the demand from so many progressive Democrats. Like, listen, it's not a question of whether you think Vladimir Putin is good or bad.
I ain't gonna lie. If y'all okay with us going to war with Russia, I have nothing to say because that's your initiative. You want to risk American lives for no damn reason. Okay, cool. We'll just leave it at that. But if you don't want to go to war with Russia, then what you're spouting right now is going against what you want.
And I would agree with you. I mean, me and you do not see eye to eye on this issue, Pierce, but I agree. It's not accurate to say Zelensky started the war. There are many factors, but Vladimir Putin is the one who invaded the country. But the point is, if you have a hostage negotiation, if someone with a gun runs into a school and holds a bunch of kids hostage and you send in the negotiator, you don't start in.
I mean, you know what, Joe? I'm going to go ahead and answer this question. So instead, we're just going to sit by and let the side... We're just going to sit by the side and just let Putin do what he wants. I mean, like I said, are you okay with us going to war with Russia? And if so, then I mean, no. Then if like I said, if you're okay with this, then no. You just got to make that decision, though, BG. You can't sit there and have it both ways. And like I said, I mean, there's a lot of countries who sit by and let Americans do what we want. I mean, there's a lot of countries who sat by and let us do what we want to these Middle Eastern countries, Afghanistan, Gaza, I mean, Syria, shit. A lot of countries sat by and let us run reign. So who are we to judge? Who are we not? I mean, come on now. Why can't we just take the sit back and let one of the superpowers do what they want? They let us, when we do bullshit, they sit back when we do it. Fair is fair, right?
Insulting the guy and just virtue signaling for no reason and talking about how terrible it is to hold kids hostage and what a monster he is. And I'm such a better person than him. I would never do anything like that. And the truth is, you do, in some cases, try to flatter the guy a little bit, try to get the best deal that you can get. You're trying to save lives here. And I'm not going to speculate like Cenk did on, I don't think this lithium is going to end up being turned over to Elon. And I think it's quite possible that Donald Trump does have some good.
And guys, notice in the chat, since I asked that question, they have not answered it because they know they're arguing in bad faith.
Motives here. And that the truth is that the Joe Biden's policy with regard to Ukraine is the most reckless policy in the history of the modern American policy in general. To be on a proxy war with the two countries with the 90% of the world's nuclear arsenal, to be in a proxy war over whether the Donbass region is ruled by Kiev or Moscow, never made any sense whatsoever. And there have been close calls all throughout this thing. If you think about the Nord Stream pipeline, where we made the attempt to blame that on Vladimir Putin, which was never true. If you think about those missiles that hit Poland, which were Ukrainian missiles, which Ukraine immediately said was Russia, there were very close calls here. If you study the history of the Cold War, we came very close to nuclear war on a couple different occasions. And so I'm sorry, if Donald Trump is trying to bring an end to this war, then I think if he's successful in that, it'll be the greatest accomplishment of his life. And I'm all for trying to end this war.
Okay, General Kimmett, I mean,
That's not the question. No, he's misdirecting, though. That's not the question. We all want the war to end. And I don't need him to yell at Putin. I don't need him to sign anything. I just need him to do rational negotiations so that everyone on here is happy and the war ends. And I don't need
rational negotiation. I hope he explains, like, what would be a rational negotiation with him? Because like I said, seeing that Russia holds all the chips, they hold the land, right? They got the weapons. Like I said, if we're not willing to fight Russia, then they have the leverage. If we're not willing to put boots on the ground, yes, Russia has leverage. Like, bro, they already proved to us that we can't really sanction them like that no more. We sanctioned their ass and they went and bought their oil on the Chinese yuan. They showed us that they can go without our dollar because these bastards done started BRICS.
Need like Ukraine to win on every negotiating point. I just want to get the peace,
which we will take out eventually. America, what can I say?
If you want to get the peace, holding up Ukraine for a $500 billion robbery that is obviously going to go to help American corporations like Tesla who need that lithium, that makes no sense. And that hurts the cause that you care about, Dave, and that all of us care about.
I'm not as convinced, Cenk, this is all just some play by Elon. I mean, I think if America can do a deal that gets a lot of Ukraine's minerals in return for the substantial support America's given to Ukraine and would then continue to give, that seems to me a pretty pragmatic deal, actually. My question for General Kimmett would be this, which is, I wouldn't trust Putin as far as I could throw it. And I think his actions in Georgia, in Crimea, now Ukraine, full Ukraine, all this suggests to me is the theory that many people have about him, which is that he wishes the Soviet Union had never been broken up, that he is intent on expanding Russia's territory, and that if he gets away with keeping 20% of Ukraine, then he'll either come back for more or he'll try and get it somewhere else and try and expand Russia's power and territorial reach elsewhere. And I've got to say, I'm very cynical. I think that's exactly what he'd like to do. Am I wrong to be cynical?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. Now, look, he's paid a pretty heavy price in terms of what he's lost in Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of dead, probably 10 times that amount wounded. But you've got to understand that the Russians can take pain like nobody's business. What he has lost in Ukraine is a fraction of what they lost in World War II. And he is testing NATO. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, he is.
If he wanted to attack,
like I think I could agree with him on that assessment. He is testing NATO to see. It's like, bro, are y'all gonna step? Y'all saying that y'all don't want Ukraine to be taken over by me? Oh, y'all want Ukraine to be over there? All right, step on it. Please tell me, throw them hands up. Tell me what you want to do about it. That's and Russia pulled their card, and Ukraine and NATO just sat back like, look, I ain't want to throw hands, but I'll throw money in on the fight though. It's like wild.
He could continue this attack, not in Ukraine, but up in the Baltics. And
like he sent in his little brother and then just start throwing money in, like, yeah, okay, I got my money. I got money on my little bro. Why? And his little bro out there just getting his ass whooped. Like, why?
Take back that critical area up in the Baltics that gives him access to the Atlantic and the North Atlantic. The only thing I think that is holding him back is that it's not a matter of what he would lose. It's a matter of the fact that he goes from fighting one country, Ukraine, to fighting 27 countries in NATO. So I do think that he does not think for a moment about what he's lost in Ukraine and the effect it has on his population. That's the beauty of being an authoritarian leader. But I do believe that he has those long-term aspirations, as so many Russian monarchs have had throughout history, of expanding the Russian Empire well beyond where it is now. But I will tell you that I disagree with what Boris Johnson told you about, and to use your term, NATO expansion. The fact is that one could make a legitimate argument that the Russians have had a paranoia throughout history about the encroachment of the West. The word Ukraine means the frontier. The Russians have always wanted a frontier between themselves and the West. And if you want to make that argument that there was some legitimacy of this concern of NATO enlargement and try to dismiss it, I would remind Americans about the Monroe Doctrine. We go ballistic when foreign countries get anywhere near the United States, as we've done in the past. We invaded Grenada, that great existential threat to America. We invaded Panama, yet another threat to the freedom and liberty of Americans. And the only time we really had a legitimate reason for doing that was in '62, when the Soviet Union put nuclear missiles on Cuba. But let's be honest, Americans have the same.
Honestly, to make this make more sense for people, imagine if, I don't know, let's say in the unlikely chance that Africa had some military alignment, right? I mean, a military alliance, right? And this military alliance wanted to invite Mexico in there, a military alliance taking Mexico in, and now we got some foreign military alliance on our border. Do you think we're going for that? No, we'll go at it, bro. We will take out the African government and the Mexican government in the same goddamn day before we allow a foreign adversary on our border. Russia acts the same way, and we're surprised. I don't get it.
Paranoia about encroachment into our hemisphere, as Putin does into what he believes is his hemisphere as well.
Yeah, I do get that argument. I know it's the one that he peddles loudest with his own people, but I think the paranoia stroke desire to not see any impending encroachment as they see it on their border is probably real. It doesn't mean they're right to do what they did. It just means the paranoia is you can understand why some of them, if not a lot of them. feel that way.
If I could just quickly add, right? Because I think sometimes, and even in your question to Boris Johnson, sometimes people go like all or nothing with this, right?
I agree.
So it's not like
nuanced.
it was Vladimir Putin provoked, and therefore, if he was provoked, he's a great guy and he was justified to invade the country like that.
Hell no. I'm not saying Vladimir Putin's a great guy. Hell no, he's not. In my opinion, he's not. I'm gonna tell you why. Because he runs an oligarchy. I don't agree with that. But in terms of this situation, I mean, shit, America would have did the same thing. Any leader running a country would have did the same damn thing Putin doing. So it's really hard to judge him off that. Now, if you want to judge this man off running an oligarchy, I mean, shit, we can go at it all day. And guess what? I will agree with you that it's wrong. But when it comes to this situation right here, he's a little bit he's kind of right. He's in the right at this point.
Those second two parts don't.
And they don't let him be in the right.
Follow.
Yeah.
But the point is, and I would highly recommend just to back up what was just said here, if anyone wants to go read, because the CIA director for all 4 years of Joe Biden's administration, who was the CIA director while this entire war was going on, Burns, right? He is the one who authored the "Niet means Niet" memo that was sent to Condoleezza Rice. And this was not for the public. We only know about this because Julian Assange leaked it. But he said at the time, he was the ambassador to Russia. And he put up this entire document where he was like, look, these plans of including Ukraine in NATO is going to be a disaster. And I've been over here talking with everybody in Russia, not just Vladimir Putin, even his sharpest liberal critics. They all agree that this is the brightest of red lines for them. They
make sure to like the video, guys. Go ahead and double tap that screen or hit the 3 dots up there in the corner. I appreciate the support. And also make sure to subscribe to the channel, guys. We do this every night.
Will not tolerate Ukraine being a part of America's military alliance. And I just don't understand why of course, we would not tolerate that either. If China or Russia wanted to bring Mexico into their military alliance and then just announced, as they did 2 months after this memo at the Bucharest summit, that they were going forward with that, and then there was and then they poured tens, maybe over $100 million into a street protest, which overthrew the democratically elected president of Mexico, who was going to make a deal with us, and then went in the other. We would have the exact, and I don't think Washington, D.C. would be above invading Mexico if that's what they needed to do. We would never talk.
Like, yes, a lot of people be forgetting that, bro. The guy before Zelensky was pro-Russia. He was cool with Putin. Then we went somebody who was cool with Putin to somebody who don't like his ass. And now look where we're at. It's all because we got involved with Ukraine politics or their government. So it is kind of on us as well. And and here it is. I ain't gonna lie. This is kind of like karma on us. Bit of karma, but it is what it is.
Tolerate that.
Like, thanks, Obama.
And we could recognize that Vladimir Putin is no angel, and also understand that the West put him into a situation where he reasonably could claim, I cannot tolerate what your plans are here. What's the point of us doing this? It makes no sense. It's not in our interest.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Walsh, the other part of
I would add, and one thing I would add as well, what I would add as well is Bill Burns was working for James Baker when James Baker told Genscher, as part of the reunification of Germany, that we would not seek to expand NATO to the east. Again, wise people like Bill Burns, James Baker understood this basic, perhaps unfounded, but genetic predisposition, opposing approachment of NATO, Ukraine, their frontier.
Yeah. Joe Walsh, I mean, the other part of this that I think is significant is we've got the British Prime Minister going to the White House on Thursday. Emmanuel Macron was there Monday. And Trump is quite right, in my opinion, about the disparity between what America contributes to NATO in terms of resource, money, weaponry, and so on, compared to the European countries. And through his own hectoring about this, many of the other NATO countries are now paying a lot more money than they were before into NATO. But he's also right that ultimately Europe should be moving quickly to be able to secure itself collectively from people like Vladimir Putin. And I don't understand why there's any kickback to that. I think the UK spends about 2.3% of GDP on defense. It's nowhere near enough. We live in dangerous times. And I think that Trump is very, very accurate in saying Europe is not punching its weight and needs to do that. And people dismiss it as America first, isolationism, and so on. Well, yeah, but it doesn't mean to say he's not right. I do think that many European countries need to wake up.
Well, and Pierce, and they have the last 4 years while Trump wasn't in the White House. European nations dramatically increased their share to NATO. Europe has contributed more to Ukraine than the United States did. But Pierce, to this notion of encroachment of NATO.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You either believe NATO's a good thing or a bad thing. There's a reason why countries like Finland and so many other European countries want to be in NATO.